If you've clicked on this video to find out how to add RGB lighting to your system, it's probably for one of two reasons. Number one, you've built a budget system and the components you've used don't actually have any RGB baked into them. Or number two, you built your system a few years ago, back when RGB lighting wasn't really a craze, and so you might have top-end components, but none of them have RGB lighting baked in. And now you're looking to upgrade, sort of to get RGB, but you don't want to have to replace all of your components because they're still working fine for you. And that's fine. So what I'm going to do today in this video is explain to you what I consider to be a fantastically cost-effective way of upgrading your system from non-RGB to RGB with the best possible bang for your buck. So the first thing you're going to want to do is check if your motherboard has a 4-pin RGB header on it. The way you do that is you just go and you look up what motherboard you have, you look on either online or in the physical manual which came with your motherboard to check if you have an RGB header. If you do, that's fantastic, and you'll likely be able to take full advantage of Asus's Aura Sync software. However, if you don't, that's not an issue. You'll still be able to use RGB lighting, but you won't have quite as many features available to you. If you don't know what Asus Aura Sync is, here's a quick rundown. It's essentially software which allows you to synchronize the RGB lighting of components in your system. So for example, in my system, I have some RGB fans, some RGB LED strips, as well as my RAM and my graphics card. All of them are Asus Aura Sync compatible, and they allow me to synchronize them so that any sort of patterns or colors I choose will be the same across all of the components, and I can set up little patterns and gimmicks like that. One really cool feature of Asus's Aura Sync is what they like to call the smart lighting. Now, it is really more of a gimmick, but it is pretty cool. You can sort of change the colour of your components based on either the CPU temperature or the percentage load of your CPU, and I think that's quite cool. I mean, obviously nobody's going to start replacing hardware monitoring software with RGB lights, but it does give you that little bit of customizability and sort of that sort of wow factor that not everybody else will have. For this video, I'm going to be using some of Akasa's RGB accessories, and I'd recommend you do as well because they are 100% Asus Aura Sync compatible, and not only that, but they are incredible value for money. So the most important thing you're going to need for this tutorial is Akasa's RGB control card, and it goes into one of your PCIe slots. And if you don't know what it does, essentially think of it as the brain which will be sending out all the different instructions for how to light up your system to all the different RGB components. It supports up to 4 RGB headers, so think of it as a bit of a splitter. So you plug it into your RGB header on your motherboard and then it splits off into different chains. However, it isn't just a splitter because it has a lot of functionality on it. It also has a manual mode if you don't have an RGB header, as well as the Asus Aura Sync mode in case you just want to use the Asus Aura Sync software. For today's video, we'll be using these products from Akasa: their PCIe control card, their RGB fans, and 2 of their magnetic RGB lighting strips. It's actually incredibly easy to install the RGB control card. By default, it already has the full-size expansion bracket installed. However, if you are running a half-height case, then make sure you switch it over. It's an incredibly simple process and it's in the instruction manual if you need to use it. However, assuming that you've got the right one installed, all you need to do is take the bracket out of your original case by unscrewing the screw. Sometimes this is a thumb screw on more higher model cases, otherwise you will need to use a screwdriver. Then once you've done that, insert the bracket with the control card attached to it and put the screw back into place. And it's as simple as that. That is your control card installed. Well, unless you want to include the SATA cable, which you'll need to use to power it, so make sure you plug in the SATA to 3-pin adapter to make sure you power the control card, and then if you have the RGB header, make sure you plug that in as well. The control card supports up to 4 individual RGB headers connecting to it. However, more devices can be connected if they are connected in series with one another. An example of RGB accessories connected in series is Akasa's magnetic RGB lighting strips. As you can see here, I have 2 connected in series so that they can form a continuous loop around the edge of my case. The magnetic lighting strips are more than capable of holding their own weight, as the magnets are fairly strong, unlike what you'll often find on many magnetic lighting strips within this sort of price bracket. As you can see, I have them magnetically attached to this NZXT H440, and there is no worry of them falling off anytime soon. At 50 cm in length each, I can just about get over half a ring of RGB lighting with 2 LED strips. I would recommend you also purchase a 4-pin extension cable so that you can have a gap between your LED lighting strip and your control card. Just like the fans in this system, the magnetic lighting strips are fully AuraSync compatible and so work elegantly with the rest of your RGB system. Each fan from Akasa has 2 plugs. The 3-pin connector connects to the motherboard, whilst the 4-pin connector connects to the Akasa RGB control card. The Vegas R7 120mm fans are equipped with anti-vibration pads on both sides of the fan, which help reduce the sound level of these fans to 23.8 decibels at 1500 RPM. If you're not sure how loud that is, Silent PC describes this as the sound of breathing at about 1 meter's distance. Each fan is also rated for a maximum airflow of 35.2 CFM, which makes this fan a decent choice for those on a budget, especially if you're going for the RGB aesthetic. So let's say that your motherboard is not AuraSync compatible and you have to use the manual mode on the Akasa control card. Well, in that case, all you have to do is go to the back of the computer and switch from the AuraSync mode to the manual mode. And then you have a little silver button, and each time you press that you will cycle through all the different lighting modes. There's 7 colours available, as well as multiple different lighting modes including rainbow effects and breathing effects. Overall it just looks fantastic and you have a massive variety of options to choose from. The fans are incredibly easy to install as well. They install just like normal fans, however they will, rather than having a Molex connector, they have 2 different connectors. One 3-pin and one 4-pin. If you've been following me on Twitter, you would have seen that I had to fix some Molex connectors the other day, and oh my god, is it a nightmare, right? Molex connectors can go and burn in hell, so I'm really happy that Akasa have not included any Molex connectors whatsoever in any of this RGB setup. The 3-pin connector will connect directly to your motherboard or your fan hub. The 4-pin connector will connect to the Akasa control card, and what that does is allow it to synchronize with the rest of your RGB. And because these fans are magnetic, there's absolutely no worry of them wearing out over time. They're going to be working until the LEDs go, and because they're LEDs, they're going to be going for a hell of a long time. So you really don't have any worries there, especially considering that because they're magnetic, you can put them virtually anywhere, you can move them as much as you like, and they're going to work in pretty much every single case. Now, as you can see, I've got this set up in an NZXT H440, but there isn't anything stopping you from doing this in any other cases. Even if they aren't sort of metal, so you can't use the magnets, there's nothing stopping you from sort of going on Amazon and buying glue or getting little strips of glue, sticky stuff, whatever, and then sticking it on to plastic or glass or whatever. So your options aren't that limited, even if you don't have a metallic case, which 90% of them are. If you did enjoy that video, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you have any feedback or suggestions or any ideas for future videos, please do make sure to leave that in the comment section down below.